So welcome everyone to the Town of Richmond Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. The meeting has started at 7:04 and it looks like we have a quorum of 4 members, so we can get going.
Well, I assume Chelsea's here. I haven't seen her, and I heard Mark, so.
Chelsea is at the library right now.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
So, I don't know what time the library closes, but anyway.
Is at 8.
Okay, well, that's where she is right now, because all of her children are making noise, I guess. All right. So we're gonna look at our agenda, and the first item on it is to review the agenda. The agenda has basically 2 items on it. The first item is to vote to forward a recommendation to the Select Board to appoint Dante DeNault, the zoning officer, and Keith, the acting zoning administrator. So they're just reversing their positions. Keith has been the zoning officer or the zoning administrator, and Dante has been the acting. So he is pretty, coming along up to speed. So this is what this item will be. It's an action item. We hope to vote on that. The second item is to look at the implementation table, which the Planning Commission had not had much of a chance to look at, and just to look at the Planning Commission assigned items and maybe decide to prioritize them for our work in the upcoming year. So we'll see how much, how far we get with that, especially if we lose our quorum. So other business, just to review our dates, which hopefully everybody has fixed in their minds at this point in time. Any changes or additions to the agenda anybody wants to make?
I don't know what the community input would be on this, but I'd kind of like to, as soon as we get a 4th outside of Chelsea who may abstain, to make the movement vote on Dante. So I don't know if we could raise that discussion. I don't know if we
Yes.
can discuss there, but be flexible about when that comes up so that I can potentially hop off at any moment.
Okay, so what are you actually asking? If we can have a discussion about it or not, or what?
Well, I guess we need a voting member here to have the proper discussion on it. I guess it was inappropriate to say discussion, but just have the flexibility to have that discussion.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. There's no use in having a discussion if you don't have a quorum enough to make,
Right.
the action item.
Yeah. So we can just make sure that that is the intention of Chelsea, to abstain, not to abstain, but to actually recuse herself. So,
Oh, she's there now.
yes,
Sorry. Yeah, I've been here the whole time. I was just muted
Yeah.
and camera off because, I didn't know how good the library Wi-Fi was.
yeah, looks pretty good.
So yeah, I don't plan to vote on this. I will be abstaining from the vote. However, I feel like I can recuse myself and speak from a position of the public.
Okay, so, you won't be able to vote on it. We will not be able to have 4 votes for approval with this many people. So what do we want to do, Keith? Do we want to put it off to the next meeting or what? Or do we want to,
Well, if Rebecca shows up.
Rebecca is not coming.
Oh, she isn't now?
She isn't now, no.
Uh.
And Allison is questionable.
Yeah, I guess it's up to you, Virginia, because if the intention is to hop on a vote, if somebody else jumps on, and do that quickly so that Mark can log off, then I feel like I'd like to sort of say what I have to say, but if the intention is to move it to the next agenda, then that becomes moot. But I don't want for the intention to be like to vote right when Allison jumps on and not have that discussion.
Yeah, no, we definitely want to have the discussion before.
Right, well, you
With
know,
everybody who will be voting.
based upon the previous few meetings when Allison has had a lot of trouble connecting, I don't really necessarily expect her to be joining the meeting. So, you know, I think probably the best thing is to move this to our next meeting. And hope that we can have a quorum at that point in time. So,
The 16th or the 17th?
yeah, it's the 17th, I think.
I'll be here.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, you're gonna be here on the 17th?
Yes.
Okay. So let us reschedule this item to the December 17th meeting.
Okay.
Very close. There we go.
Okay. All right, so Mark, if you need to go away and do something else,
Be free.
Not immediately, but I'll cut out and holler when I do.
be free, because this is not, you know, the second item on our agenda is not essential that we do right at this point in time. On the 17th, we will be reporting on the new amendments that have come from the public information that we've received, the public comment that we have gotten between November 12th and December 5th. So we've had a number of people who have provided us with comment, and the steering committee at next week's steering committee meeting on the 10th is going to talk about all that comment that has come in and make a set of amendments, just like we did the last time, to update the commentary. We've wanted to leave it open as long as possible because we know people get interested right at the last minute. So we've left it open probably longer than, you know, it's really handy. But we'll have a new set of amendments that will then be presented with the second draft that the Planning Commission approved at the Select Board's first meeting on January the 5th. Ian?
So, if we, on the town plan steering committee, if we make some changes to the language that the planning commission already approved to be sent to the select board, the planning commission as a group really doesn't vote on that again, right?
No.
It's kind of out of our hands as a group.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we're not making any changes to the draft that the Planning Commission approved. That draft is going as, it's called the second draft. It is going to the January 5th Select Board meeting. Those amendments that the steering committee is going to, you know,
Consider.
recommend are going to go to that meeting also, just the same as we did at the Planning Commission meeting. That will go as a separate group of amendments. So what we hope is that, you know, the Select Board votes to approve draft 2 and votes to approve the new package of amendments.
Okay.
So,
But on the, the 17th, we'll have a chance to at least discuss those amendments.
yeah, I mean,
Or are we even gonna worry about it at this point and just move it directly to the, do we have to worry about it?
no, you don't have to worry about it. And in fact, the draft and the amendment will, you know, be a package that will appear on January 5th. So you don't have to worry about it. The Planning Commission is not being asked to speak about it. The steering committee is just putting together the comments that have come in and
Okay,
making
well, it
decisions
won't
about
have to-
whether.
If the select board adopts them, it doesn't have to come back to us for any kind of approval.
Nope, it has to go to a second hearing on the 21st by the Select Board
With the
to put
caveat,
it on the warning.
with,
So do we provide, oh, sorry, Mark.
I'm sorry, with the caveat that you can't institute substantial changes. The select board cannot do that, because if that's the case, then yes, it would have to be kicked back to the planning commission.
Hmm.
Okay, we haven't
Yeah.
heard anything substantial though yet, have we? I mean, even
No.
in
No.
last meeting we had was nothing, you know, there were some pointers here and
Mhm.
there, but substantively substantial difference.
Mhm.
Right, yeah, what we're not allowed to do is to suggest changes to the meaning or the concepts. And so far, most, if not all, of the public comment that we've had has been either adding detail to expand a little bit on certain features. For instance, the new comments that have come in, there have been quite a lot from Richmond Racial Equity that expands on the concept of exclusiveness. No, what am I trying to say? Inclusiveness. On the concept of inclusion, which we have already. And in fact, the Regional Planning Commission will be very happy that we're adding a little more detail to what we mean by inclusion. You have to have, for instance, like Richmond Racial Equity suggested, that we have multicultural events, you know, that we support them at the school. So that's just adding a little detail and specificity to being an inclusive community. So
Okay.
far, you know, that's what we've got. We've got expanded comments on ideas that we already have in the plan.
So do we include those comments verbatim to the select board, or do we incorporate it into the language that we've already created?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about on the 10th,
Okay,
is how to incorporate those. And
Okay.
if it isn't already mentioned somewhere else, you know, do we need to incorporate it, or should we just see that it is mentioned somewhere else? So,
Right.
so that's the kind of thing that we'll be doing. All right, so that's the plan. We'll move to the next item, our next item. Oh, did you still have another comment, Ian, or your hand?
No, I'm
hand's
just
still up?
being slow on the draw. Thanks.
All right. So we're going to look at the implementation table and look at the kinds of things that have been, actually, we'll do one thing before that. We're going to review, before we do that, we better review the minutes, and we better also ask Marcy if she wants to comment on anything that is on this agenda.
Am I off? Yeah, I do. Although I'm not sure it's really not an agenda item, I guess. I mean, it would be hard pressed for me to say that what I have to say relates to a specific agenda item, with one small exception, and that is I'm just still super concerned that the people in this town do not know really what's happening with the town plan, and specifically the map. And I mentioned that it's somewhat related to an agenda item on the November 19th draft minutes. There are action items listed, one of which says post information about the new draft on FPF. This draft may be further amended at subsequent public hearings. For some reason, I thought soon after November 19th, there would be a post on Front Porch Forum about this map, and I have not seen it. I don't think that post has happened. I don't think people know about this map. I guess right after your last meeting, I happened to run into 4 people literally on the street, with the exception of Denise Barnard, who cut my hair. And I asked each one of them, these are people, one of them is Karen Yagi, who is, I think, at the town center right now, hoping to join this meeting. She just sent me a text saying, I thought they were meeting tonight. I told her it's online. I don't know if she'll be able to join or not. I also mentioned it to Gary Bresser and Bob Heiser, and none of those people, I think most of you know that those are people in the know in this town, and they don't know about where we are in this process and specifically the map. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the map and the timeline that we're under. I want to acknowledge that I know you folks took a lot of public input at the start of this process. But the map is integral to what's going on. It was finalized on November 3rd. It would have been nice to have some post back then to the community that the map is finalized. It's time to look at it, review it. You know, I've done so. Keith was kind enough to give me a nice big copy of the map so I could really see what was going on. As you know, I think I have a number of questions about it. For example, well, first of all, let me just step back and say, this whole process, the Planning Commission is charged with updating. The Planning Commission sort of outsourced that task to a steering committee. And some of the members of the Planning Commission are on the steering committee, some aren't. Some members on the steering committee are not on the Planning Commission. And then, as far as I can tell, at some point, a working group was established with four people. I think it was 4 people, unless Virginia, were you on that working group? I don't know. Okay, so I guess 5 people to work on the map. And the map was finalized on November 3rd. Here's a question. Has the Planning Commission had a discussion in an open meeting on the map? Can you tell me if they have? On the final map, the November 3rd map? I don't think you have, because I think I've been coming to these meetings. I don't think there's been any discussion, even among the Planning Commission, about what's on the map. There certainly hasn't been a discussion in an open public forum like the November 3rd, November 4th meeting. That would have been a perfect time to show the map and get people looking at it and thinking about it. I'm going to give you an example.
Well, I just want to say that at our workshops in July, we
Yeah.
did have the prototype map.
Okay, well, speaking of July, I'm glad you mentioned that, because from what I've done a lot more work. I spent all day yesterday working on this. You know, I have like 12 different files open on my computer, different websites, trying to make sense of all of this. What I'm finding is that the CCRPC, everybody know what that means? Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission produced initial maps on 3/19/25 for all Chittenden County towns. They introduced them. There was a second iteration released on 7/10/25. There was one change made to the Richmond map in a document that I found summarizing all the changes in all the towns that had been made. In Richmond, the property at 260 Governor Peck Highway changed from transition to enterprise to reflect future and planned use as a solar array. So 4 months passed, and all we did was talk about one specific property that I think got changed.
There were some other changes.
Well, they weren't listed were they substantial? Well,
They were properties that were already that were conserved, properties that were known to be conserved because the Richmond Land Trust holds the easements. Those properties went into the rural conservation. So those properties, based on the input from Richmond, went into the rural conservation because they're known to be conserved properties.
I'm all with that. But did that happen before or after July 10th? According to the memo I found from the Regional Planning Commission summarizing all the changes that have been made between March 19th and July 10th, the only change that was listed for Richmond was this 260 Governor Peck Highway. So I suspect maybe that change you're talking about happened after July 10th.
I don't
I'm-
remember the exact date that that
Maybe
information was submitted.
after July 10th, I think. Not only did other conserved parcels get added to the map, that's fine, or added to rural conservation. I have no problem with that. That's fine. But I think there were a number of other changes regarding rural conservation lands mostly that got made. And again, I don't, did the planning commission have a discussion about what has now come to be quite a bit more conserved land or rural conservation land in Richmond than we've had before? I don't know if the planning commission has had that discussion. Did the steering commission have that discussion, or was it done just by the working group? I'm talking about process issues and the fact that I think whatever the working group did was really behind closed doors as far as the public is concerned. And it made a big impact on the map. And not, I should just clarify here, this is not just about my land, our land.
Hmm.
It's about a number of places in town, and I'm just going to give you all an example. But I hope you'll all think about, have you looked at this map? Have you reviewed it carefully? Have you reviewed it against the ECOS map, which is the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission map for Richmond, which was submitted to in a 6-hour meeting on Monday to the Land Use Review Board? It is quite different. It's different from our map. And I should add, there's a methodology. I found a methodology that the Chittenden County Regional Commission did, and I found a grid which happens to be on a richmond.gov page that talks about all these land use categories and what attributes qualify each parcel for which category. So I'm just going to give you an example. Here's the nice map that Keith made, and I can't, hopefully you can at least see, but I have a nice copy of this map. Are you all aware that I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, I don't know exactly where the line is between Southview and Hidden Pines, but all or most of Southview is currently in rural conservation. There's a big circle on the map north of the village, which happens to encompass all of Southview.
Yeah, that's the big circle is rare and endangered species that was put on there by the CCRPC. That's from their mapping.
Oh yeah, I know, they prepared this map, but it's not
Right.
on their map of Richmond.
It's not what?
It is not rural conservation on the ECOS map right now.
Are you talking about the 2018 or the 2026?
The 2026, the one they presented to the LURB yesterday, Monday. Right, they don't show that as rural conservation.
Well, I don't know why they have changed it, because that came with their map, which was the basis for our map. That circle that you're talking about.
Changing things. I think we're changing things from what their map showed. I mean, yes, they prepared our map, but the map, the regional plan map is different from our map in a number of areas. And I'm not sure that the Planning Commission is aware of this. Now, let me add that I have a meeting that we set up with Virginia and Bob Lowe tomorrow, and I'm happy to get into a lot more nitty-gritty details about all of this stuff. But I just want you all to know that I think there's process issues in terms of the public not knowing what's going on with this map. I am concerned that that the ECOS map is different in some pretty significant respects, I think, than our map. One other example I'm going to give you, this is Stage Road where I live, there,
Hmm.
some parcels are in forest and ag, other parcels are rural conservation. But if you look at the regional plan map, you will see Stage Road bumps up against the Bolton town line. And there's a number of parcels, including mine, quite a few of them that spill over into Bolton. And in Bolton, the Bolton portion of those lots is rural ag and forestry, not rural conservation. So we're
Well,
not being consistent on lots with what the adjoining town is doing and what the regional plan is doing. But
so a lot of this came because we used the earlier versions of CCRPC's future land use map to base our map on. And so if they have changed it since they looked at our map, because we had to provide all of our plan and our map to the Planning Advisory Committee to get a preliminary approval, which they have given. But if they have changed it since then, you know,
if they have
they
changed,
haven't told us that they have changed it.
I think
If they have changed their map, if they have evolved their map to be different,
their map looks very much like the March map that they produced, their initial map.
yes, that is what we based our map on. And then we added these parcels that are either conserved land or they have mapped features
Right.
that put them into the rural conservation category.
Right. And did we, and as I've asked before, again, we can talk more about this tomorrow, but have we applied whatever methodology we used consistently throughout the town? Every time I ask that question, I get the answer I seem to get is that there was not enough time. It was compressed time. We didn't have enough time. And so what I assume is it probably wasn't applied uniformly. Bryant Hill, for example, is not all conservation land. I don't know why. It's a large, isn't that a large habitat block of some sort on Bryant Hill? I don't know. We can talk more about this tomorrow, but it's just an example of, as I start to dig into this, I'm troubled that our map is different from Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission and that people aren't aware of the decisions that somebody has made. I'm not sure. I don't think it was the Planning Commission as a whole, because I don't think I'm hearing that the Planning Commission has talked about the map. And I'm not sure that the Planning Commission understands the ramifications of some of the changes that have been made. So I could go on. I could tell you that there was a lot boundary issue with our parcel, which I solved with the town assessor. Great. The land use review board still has not finalized what they're going to do about tier 3, and it won't be done until sometime next year. And I think we would be really well advised to stick with something way more like the Chittenden County Regional Plan map for Richmond, which is, and wait for the Land Use Review Board to decide what they're going to do with tier 3. Maybe we'll decide that the tier 3 provisions adequately protect what we're, these additional areas that we've added to rural conservation land, and that we don't need to, we can call them what they really are, which is like our land. It's not conserved, it's rural forestry land. That it's in current use. That's what we use it for. That's what it is. We've had it for 50 years. It's always been that. We have no intention of developing it. I could go on. I'm taking a lot of your time. There's a lot more I could say. Virginia, you'll probably hear it all tomorrow. I don't want to take all your time, but I am troubled by this. I'm really troubled by the fact that nobody in this town knows what's going on because there's been no publicity of this map. And whenever I talk to somebody about it, they're which is really just those 4 people that I mentioned, they're kind of astounded that this is happening, that nobody knows about it.
And did they know anything about the previous map that we had in our 2018 plan, do you think? I don't know that anybody ever knew anything about that map either, for that matter.
But that map was way less controversial than this map. That map was way there.
Yeah, it had, it,
Southview is in rural conservation. That, don't you think the people in Southview would want to be aware of that? And that their lots may end up with tier 3 implications, which may mean that their lots are subject to some form of Act 250 jurisdiction that we don't even know what it'll be because the Land Use Review Board hasn't made decisions yet on
well,
the.
and their process, by the way, the tier 3 process
Mhm.
is an Act 250, a land use review board. It has nothing to do with our map. It has nothing to do with our map. It has nothing to do with what we call any of this land. They are going to decide which lands are going to be tier 3. And
Right.
whatever they decide, that's the way it's going to be. We have no say over that.
Right, I understand that.
So
but
it's not, it's a completely separate process. It's not
but
relevant really to our map.
But I've also seen a graphic, a schematic on the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission's website that shows all of the different land use categories. And it's only under rural conservation that tier 3 shows up. Like if you're in rural conservation, according to this schematic, if you're in rural conservation, you may be subject to tier 3, depending on what the Land Use Review Board does, in which case Act 250 jurisdiction in some form may apply to your land.
Right, well, that's whatever kind of criteria they set up. And those criteria are more likely to be in conservation land, but the area of tier 3 is a whole separate procedure. It doesn't relate to what is designated as conservation land. It relates to the features that they're trying to preserve.
That's
And the
right.
features are similar to the ones that we're trying to preserve with
Right.
conservation, rural conservation designation, but they're not related to each other except through the features that they're trying to preserve.
Yes, right.
So
And yeah,
let me call on these folks. Ian,
My
And then Chelsea.
my recollection is that we did have a lot of conversations about these maps this year. And something that came up over and over again was that our map's non-binding when it comes to land use decisions. Is that correct?
no.
well, this map has no regulatory, our future
Right.
land use map in the town plan has no regulatory ability.
Right.
The
Okay.
only regulatory ability will come with whatever the planning, what the planning commission decides to do with the future land use map, if
Okay.
anything.
Which would be a
So-
future conversation.
Will be a future conversation. Right now, the whole of the teal and green area is called rural, ag residential. It's just ag residential land, which is not very helpful if we're actually trying to identify where natural features are that we would like to preserve. This was the
Okay.
problem with our other map. It was not even useful in that way. So the future land use map is not regulatory. And if the planning commission takes up revising the ag residential district based on this map, then there will be many discussions about it and there will be many public hearings and so forth about it. So,
Okay, I had a question from RC too, real quick, if I could. Is your concern, I mean, out of a few things, there's a process issue that you mentioned. Are you also concerned about like property rights for people and also that conservation is being considered to the degree that people are interested in town? Like, are those all things or is there a priority out of those three for you?
I'm concerned about the fairness of this process. I'm not, as I look at this new map, I have questions about what's being done on some parcels that doesn't appear to be done on other parcels for whatever reason. I can't figure out what the reason is. As far as process, I'm really concerned that the town doesn't know, town people don't know about this map, haven't looked at the map. And as far as your question, Ian, about regulatory approval, I just want to say that in Act 250, Criterion 10 says, does your project comply with the town plan? And this map is going to be part of the town plan. So it
Mhm.
does have regulatory weight in the Act 250 process. I don't think we should discount that. I think we need to keep that in mind, that it needs to be accurate. It needs to be applied for. I believe the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission has a methodology. I looked it over. I reviewed it pretty carefully. And I think the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission used that methodology in their initial March 19th draft map, which their final map looks very much like. I think we made changes to it, and I'm not convinced that we had the time to do a thorough job and to apply it evenly to parcels, uniformly to parcels throughout the town. And again, Virginia,
Chelsea.
Pablo, and I can talk about it more.
Yeah.
But, ultimately it is the planning commission that has already approved this map. And again, you say you looked at the map, or I think you looked at earlier iterations of the map, probably the initial one that the Regional Planning Commission produced. But I don't think since November 3rd, people have been talking about this map. I haven't heard any discussion about the map in the meetings I've been attending.
Chelsea, you want to say something?
So sorry, I got a little off track listening to everybody else. The things that I remember I was going to say are a question about tier 3 and the LURB. That's not going to be based on our map. That's going to be based on CCRPC's map, correct?
No, it's going to be based on the LURB's map.
There's 3 maps. Okay. Yeah,
The
but
LURB will
ultimately,
make its own map and designate what it wants to call tier 3.
yeah. Okay. So
But that's based on some
even
of
though
the
I was a
same
little bit wrong,
criteria.
I was ultimately on the right track that it's not going to be driven by our map.
Right, correct.
Okay. And I don't know as if I have a whole lot to speak to as to how often or how much the planning commission spoke about the map because I just joined. I do see it on the agenda from October 15th with like some iterations of this map that's in the plan. And I know that from the steering committee side, we certainly saw it. I think that any version of this map is sort of hard to digest just in general because it's a lot different than the last one. And
Right.
and I think that just takes time, but it's not necessarily time that is going to be gained in putting off this process is I guess my thought and opinion because from personal experience of effort in outreach during the steering committee process. Excuse me, I'm apparently losing my voice in this moment. It's difficult. It's difficult no matter how much you think the town should know about something, or you want them to know, or you want them to engage and like sort of feel like they have like a stake in it. It was really hard during the steering committee's whole process in all of the outreach that we attempted between posts and showing up at the farmer's market and showing up at the 4th of July and having 2 charrette events. And so I don't know, just to put that into perspective, like I don't know how much more we would accomplish, even if we did decide, let's, try to make sure people know about this more, I guess, is where I just to put that perspective on the table.
Hi, Karen. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to raise the pretend hand. So I've got some notes to work through what I wanted to say tonight. And I want to start by saying that I have been following your work for a few years now, and I know you've been really thorough and you've been very thoughtful in your plans. And I appreciate the time that you've taken and the effort you've made to reach out and to consider all the variables. When you looked at the village, you met with all the individual neighborhoods instead of just considering the village all one. And in your proposed plan, you really explained the thought processes behind a lot of your work, and I appreciate that. As I read through that 150 pages, which I didn't read thoroughly and completely, I had some immediate thoughts about the future land use section. And one was that as I read pages 41 to 48 that covers that, there was no map. And I went through the whole 150 pages looking for the map. And there was no link to the map. So I went back to the Planning Commission website and searched through that and eventually found the map sort of embedded in your everyday subdivision zoning regulations. It didn't stand out alone. So I'd really like to encourage you to either include the map on page 40 or add a link to it. Because if I had trouble finding it, I suspect that other people might not find it easy to find. And a small change I'd like to suggest for the map is that you add one more category in color, excuse me, and that is that you specifically show lands already conserved in town. You know, the land for it, the town forest, the VVYC or VYCC group, the Preston lands. There are a lot of lands that are preserved already, the Beacon Trail along the river. It would be helpful to me, and I'm sure to others, to see what we've already conserved and how we've used some of that conservation money. And I have to say that my immediate reaction when I first saw the map was, oh my goodness, most of this town is being conserved. We're so desperate for housing. And that was just an initial reaction. And I spent some time reading and comparing it to the map. And we all understand how desperate we are for housing in Vermont. And I'm really glad that you worked on infills and possibly higher buildings in the village. But it doesn't really seem like the village or the area around it, the water and sewer extensions, is ever going to do much more than provide rentals. You know, most infills in people's backyards are rentals. And what I'd like to see in this town, and many people, is more modest mixed housing like the Pete development. I don't know the name of that street, but it's a mix of independent houses and joint houses, townhouses. I'm not sure what you call them. You know, Hidden Pines, the houses that have been built along Kenyon Road. Those are the sorts of things that I would like to see happening. And there just isn't room in the village. So I want to make sure that that sort of thing can happen elsewhere. I know we're concerned about cars and pollution, but gas mileage is improving for those who haven't gone electric yet. So there's a little bit of hope. I just felt like GH and I, all of those areas were listed as low housing density, staying close to their current numbers, which is out where I live and the Moultrie Farm and Hillview. Some of what you've written in the plan says that you'd like those numbers to pretty much stay the same. To about stay close to the current numbers, I think it says. And then, of course, some of the H and I have very limited density, were your words. And I'm just concerned that the reality is we can't get enough housing in the greater village area. And I really am hopeful that we find a way to allow housing, even if it involves joint septic systems and more driving. But again, I thank you for your work, and you've done an amazing job on your documents.
So, yeah, thanks, Karen. One of the things that we should know is that none of the colors on the map are saying that there's no development. They are just saying in those 3 conservation areas that you were referring to. So first of all, the 3 conservation areas, or the 3 rural areas, rural general, rural ag and forestry, and rural conservation, those have been handed down, those categories, those designations handed down by the state legislature that passed that information in Act 181 to the regional planning commissions, who installed those definitions and those categories into their maps. So, and our map has to be consistent with the regional planning commission's map. It has to align, whatever that means exactly. So those areas that have been decided by the legislature to have a lower density of residences, those are from the Regional Planning Commission. So, and what we do with that information is up to the Planning Commission here. So we can say, okay, this is what we understand by a lower density in these, rural, let's say rural ag and forestry. We want to have whatever regulations that we want to have that is going to keep it a relatively low density of housing and preserve the agricultural land or the forested land or the other resources that the Agency of Natural Resources has suggested that these should be conserved. So that's where that all comes from, those density numbers. It doesn't mean we're not going to put any houses there, but it may mean, for instance, that we want them clustered, that we don't want them wandering up into the interior of the forested land. So,
Right, but the term density, if you're going to keep a similar density or a low density, and then you add a clustered development, you're changing the density, correct?
well, it depends if you have a 10-acre parcel and you put 10 houses on 1 acre, or you have 10 houses all on 1 acre, that's the same density. You're just building it differently. if
You're
you see what I
defining
mean.
density as dwelling per acre.
Correct.
Yeah, it's usually defined as dwellings per area of land.
But when you talk about conservation lands, and you say low density, but at the same time in your pages somewhere between 41 and 48, you're suggesting that the rural agricultural maintain the low density it has now. And to me, when you start writing the zoning that enforces this plan, this plan is the outline, the zoning is the
Regulatory.
bills.
Yeah.
If it says, I guess I don't like the definition of, I'm struggling with the definition of density, because
Mhm.
is the zoning going to still say, I mean, you have no idea. But this map is encouraging less density, and therefore it would seem like people might say, oh, then we only can have one house per 10 acres. And we still want them clustered. So if you have 100 acres, you can have 10 houses. Right now, if you had 10 acres, ideal kind of property,
Mm.
you have 10 houses on 10 acres instead of 10 acres on 100. And I'm just concerned that some of this wording is going to narrow down the ability to build when the zoning is written. That's all.
Yeah, well, I know that in Richmond, for as long as I've been involved in planning, the idea of having large lot zoning has been rejected. So we don't have any like 5-acre zoning or 25-acre zoning, or because that was the way people originally thought they were going to create low density, is by making large lots. But what happened with that is that you just divided up all the land into bigger lots.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
yeah, so the goal is not to do that, not to have large lot zoning, but to have relatively small lots. I mean, there's no way we can make builders build small houses. It's very difficult to make builders not build expensive big houses, because that's what they want to do. It's more
That's how they
lucrative.
make money.
Yeah, right. So hopefully the zoning that will eventually at some point come out of this map is zoning that requires you to have smaller lots closer together and not expand everywhere into the forested land or the agricultural land. So if you want to, the houses will be closer together. They will be clustered. That's the goal of conservation design building, is to cluster the houses close together so that they don't sprawl out and take up all of the open space.
What was done at the peat farm. Those houses are in a small area. I guess my concern, and I'm not sure how to word it, but if so much of this map looks like conserved and forest land, when the zoning is written, they're going to say, oh, this is land that shouldn't be built on. I just really encourage you to make sure that building can happen easily beyond the village limits.
Mhm.
That's all. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I
Okay.
do recognize all the work you've done for all of
Yep.
you for years now.
Thanks. Yeah, well, it's challenging, because Richmond actually has a lot of land that is not very suitable for building on.
Right, I know that's
We have high places, we have ridge lines, we have elevations, we have a lot of water, a lot of running water coming down from the hills. So, there's the question of building higher up on hills and allowing, more water to run down. We don't want a lot more water running down our hills, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of constraints on building in Richmond, and people don't always want to hear that, but they're natural constraints on building. That we don't have a lot of flat land like Williston where you can just put all those houses. There will be places, and that's the aim, is to find those places where those kind of developments like Sadler Meadows fit. That's the goal, is to find those places and put the houses there. But anyway, I hear your concerns. So somebody, Marcy.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I've through these discussions, a couple times I've mentioned the idea of, for instance, on Stage Road, if you look at the map now, there's a bunch of yellow nebulous shapes. I think that's what I've been calling them lately, yellow nebulous shapes along Stage Road, for example. And what if you put a strip of land on either side of the road? I keep thinking of the roads in our town as public infrastructure. We've built the roads, we've paid for the roads, we've rebuilt the roads last year, like Stage Road, to the tune of, I don't know, $500,000 or something. And we plow the roads, and plow was up here 3 times yesterday and twice today. we're putting money into, we've put money into these roads and we continue to do so. What if I agree with protecting the habitat blocks, the large interior habitat blocks. But like Karen said, we need housing, and we've, I guess, provided for some housing with all these yellow nebulous along the road, but they are nebulous shapes. And I think if they were just a straight, I don't know, 200-foot swath along the road, that your map would be a lot easier for me, at least, to swallow, and probably others, and that would encourage building roads and not these long driveways. I mean, if you drive up Stage Road, Stage Road is such a perfect example of so much of what we're talking about. It's steep, we have cleared areas that are shooting water down to the bottom of the road and eroding the road and washing it out. We got to prevent those long driveways from happening. But we also need to provide for housing. And, you know, somebody who lives on a 10-acre lot could probably put another house on their lot, but maybe not in the yellow nebulous shape that's on the map right now, because that's where their house is. The rest of that property is green, and it may be harder to develop. We may be adding costs to these people to develop properties in that area. So that's one idea I've had, and I got a good response when I threw that out to Bob Lowe and Brad Elliott and Wright Preston, who worked on the map, I think. But it's not reflected on the map, so I assume it didn't happen. I know it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, the regional planning maps, their early maps that we based this map on, did show that there is the most of the teal color, or yellow, whatever you're calling it, it's a teal color, or the beige, kind of beige color, is along the roads. That's where we have development here in Richmond. So it's not an even strip, because not all of the property is exactly the same along the road. You know what I mean? It's not the same. And the goal is to pick out the places, even in the conserved land or the forestry and ag land or rural general, to pick out the places where it's suitable to build. And that will be allowed. That's going to be allowed. There's going to be nothing that says that you can't do that just because it's not in the beige. There may be some restrictions, like you can't make the long interior driveway, for instance, if it's in the green, but I'm not sure that having an even strip all the way along of a certain width really captures the nuance of the landscape.
Right. One reason I mention that is because I have thought quite a bit about this map and the administration of the regulations. And I think these nebulous shape pieces are going to make administration really hard. And even for landowners, well, I want to put a garage up. Is this garage in my beige nebulous shape, or is it in the green part? Somebody's gonna have to figure that out. If it's in the green part, it's perhaps going to be subject to different regulations. I can tell you on Stage Road right now, I can point to a lot that does not, it has a house on it, doesn't even have a yellow nebulous shape on it. I can point to another one, a yellow nebulous shape that's right next to the road, but the house is way up a long driveway. It's not where the yellow nebulous shape is. There are problems with this map.
Yeah, all of those came from regional planning's map.
Okay.
They came from regional planning's map, which took into consideration the actual features of the landscape, supposedly.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily we're going to say you can do something in the beige, but not in the green. I gotta get some water. Hold on just a second.
So to the rest of you, I might just say, my sense is lost a quorum possibly, at least based on the people's names I'm seeing at the top of my screen.
No, we have a quorum still.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Well, I guess there's somebody that's just showed
I
up.
have a cold, so. Anyway, does anyone else have anything they want to say? Karen?
Marcy's making me think about the map, along the Dugway where I'm more familiar, or, Stage Road or Sheet Talks. And it did strike me as odd that there were all these little yellow blips, as if somebody had gone along and said, this area works, this doesn't, this does, this doesn't. And I just wonder how zoning administrator down the road is going to be able to, or how a landowner is going to be able to say, just because mine isn't yellow doesn't mean that it should be in a conservation section. It's a very spotty kind of map. I hadn't really thought mentioned that.
Yeah, Karen, a zoning administrator wouldn't be using the flu map. They'd be using the zoning map, obviously, and each parcel stands on its own and is looked at myopically, each parcel. So the flu map wouldn't be utilized for that.
Once this is then the zoning based on this map.
Potentially, but we're going to have to go through the planning commission process in order to change that. So you would have that public comment to talk about that, from the density and all that issue.
Right, but if we don't necessarily support all the concepts of this map, then zoning's still gonna have to follow it if it's passed, correct?
Sorry, what's the question again? Sorry.
If this map is adopted, zoning is going to have to follow, the new written zoning will have to follow it.
Not necessarily.
I thought that,
I can answer that if you like, Keith. I agree with you. I agree.
Oop, you locked up, brother.
I wasn't a fan of it when CCRPC first came to us with it. It's kind of like shoving it down our throats with these classifications and growth districts versus conservation districts and all of that. But I got reiterated from them, and I think you'll go, if you ever dig back into the meetings deep enough, you will find that it doesn't really have any strict legal strength to it. Okay, so it can be used in sort of like a big picture thing, like if somebody wanted to come in and say they had 100 acres in off of what's that road up there near the Prestons, but anyways, like in this very rural backcountry, kind of all near all this regulated area where it's been defined by CCRPC that they want to develop that into 100 houses on 100 acres right in the middle of a nature corridor and all those kinds of things. Even then, you would be very, very hard pressed to get, since our zoning regulations strictly say you can't, we allow 1 acre zoning. That's our zoning up there. Doesn't changed. It would be a long drawn out legal battle, but it wouldn't have any ultimate teeth in the long run. that's not a winning battle. You could argue stormwater much more successfully. You could argue floodplain. There's a lot of different things that you've got a much more legal standing to prevent development. But until the actual zoning regulations change, there's not much. And there's not anything that says we have to. There is so much in the town plan that the town could act on, as in our planning commission putting forth regulations on different districts and all of that. But my goodness, it's far more work than we could possibly even hope to get through before the next town plan comes due for reapproval. It would take such an effort. We'll be lucky if we get a 10th or a 20th of the goals that have been laid out that are zoning specific. It just does. I mean, look at how long it's taken us to get through all these different districts. I don't know if you've been following our activity overall, but you know, getting through the village districts took like a year and a half, and you know, there was very little pushback on that. It's just a process. So to worry about that and say, oh, they're going, you know, because we're now in this property is in I don't even know what the classifications are that came down from CCR, but the most protected classification. If you wanted to subdivide your property, even probably a couple times, depending on the size, unless you've got neighbors who are going to petition against you and bog you up in court. And I live right next to the Hillview Properties development. It's my next door neighbor. I know how much of a slog it's been for them, but it's all been held up on like stormwater runoff and things. It doesn't have anything to do with the zoning. It doesn't have anything to do with the character of the neighborhood. Those are false flags. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if you really want to either hamper all development or promote more development, you need to make it happen in the zoning regulations. You need to be coming to the planning commission, getting petitions, getting people together and saying, no, I want this area protected, or I want this area, you know, to have far more development than it has. And then we'll go through the process, we'll go through the hearings, we'll go through the public outreach. Takes forever. But that was the process that we can move towards if we have a big community upsurge of people who say, I want this over that. We could do it. But other than that, we're just trying to patch holes in the legal ramifications that have come down from the state. It doesn't have anything to do with future land use maps. It's zero. We've got lots of other things we need to do about density and issues like that, which we're working through in the different districts. We've gotten a lot of it done, but there's still a lot to do. So very, very long story made even longer. I don't think there's a legitimate concern about the accuracy, the detailed accuracy of the FLUs impacting our zoning in long term. If you really want to care about something, get a coalition together and bring it to the zoning and actually implement it in our zoning regulations, and you will actually accomplish the focus of what your concerns are. So and also I just want to thank, I really do agree, and I love the idea of getting all those protected areas into the map. They should be like highlighted. If they're conserved properties, I think it would be good to have that in an official map that's easy to find when you go to look at the maps and you look around in the neighborhood and see, oh my God, look at all these other protected conserved lands. I think that is worthy of exploring, and we should look into once we get past this town plan and we get back to doing zoning and actionable, like solid regulation writing, is getting that map evolving and having that added. I love that. I also love the idea of promoting lower income housing, you know, and we've talked about that before with trying to improve the affordability of building a lower value home. We haven't gone anywhere with it, but man, I would love for you to come back and have a talk on that, because I think we can make some progress on that. And there's some things that are out there that could really promote more affordable housing, not low income housing, not like, standardized regulated, but just like exactly like the examples you threw out there, the end of Church Street over on Kenyon Road, where they're building a reasonably sized house for a middle income family to actually be able to afford to live in. And I think that's where we need to put our focus on. Get through this town plan, move it along, and start drilling down on some stuff that's actually going to make an impact on people who live here. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Adam.
Hey everyone, I just tuned in randomly. I was actually really excited about the conversation about conservation and all that. It seems like there's some cool options, even within our 1 acre zoning, to kind of write the zoning to encourage clustering of houses and create like hamlets, or like, I guess what you would call villages. Elsewhere you call them villages, but I mean, I think it's like smaller than a village where you get like 5, 10, 20 houses clustered together with surrounding conserved land. But like Mark said, it seems like the real, where the rubber hits the road is going to be as you guys take this forward and interpret it and kind of use it as a guideline to actually write the regulations. But everything I've heard, I mean, it seems like how that happens, or when that happens, there's a lot of opportunity to really encourage growth and encourage smaller lots, which reduces stormwater and cost and increases affordability, while also, keeping the character of the town and all that stuff. So it seems like there's some really great options. Hopefully you can all stick with it and put the many, many years in to make all that stuff happen.
Thank you. Yes, Adam, it will be on your plate pretty soon, so. All right, anyone else would like to say anything at this point? Marcy?
Yeah, I just want to follow up with what Mark Postle said, and Adam too. The idea of a 20 lot subdivision on one of these, larger parcels of land, that is likely going to be subject to Act 250 jurisdiction, and Act 250 is going to say, does this project comply with the town plan? And the town plan, if it's on conservation land, they may be hard pressed to say that it does. So it is regulatory. This map is regulatory in the Act 250 process, and a lot of projects that happen are subject to Act 250. And I'll just mention an example. The land adjacent to us was a big lot, like it was a big lot, and the landowner, this is years ago, subdivided it into, it is currently 6 lots. The landowner subdivided it into 5 lots because he wanted to avoid Act 250 jurisdiction. He made an agreement with a buddy of his or something to buy the 5th lot, and that person subdivided that lot into 2 lots to make it a total of 6 lots. But that was all done to avoid Act 250 jurisdiction. So, kind of the hurdles people will jump through to if they think there's going to be a problem with Act 250. So believe me, I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but I'm trying to use that as an example why this map that we're proposing could be problematic for housing, especially large or clustered housing projects that would require Act 250 approval.
One thing I would like to say about the Act 250 is the whole point of Act 181, I can't talk too much else, I'll start coughing again, but the whole point of it was to trade the exemptions that we're giving in the developed areas to Act 250. Exemptions were given in exchange for more oversight in the areas of the state that we would like to preserve the natural resources of. So that's their point. That's what they would like to do. One thing about subdivisions is every subdivision is not no matter what district it's in, or if it's split into two districts, one is tier 3 and one is tier 2, they will only consider where the actual building is going to happen. It will not be the whole, either tier 2 or tier 3 won't rule the whole subdivision. They're going to make allowances for where the actual building is going to happen. So they're aware that we need housing and that we need to put it in somewhere. And they're not saying that you can't put it in tier 3, but you're going to have Act 250. That was the deal that was made, less Act 250 in where 85% of the development is supposed to go. That's what the state has decided in order to keep the natural resources intact. Anyway, I got to stop talking. Chelsea.
So I was just going to speak to the piece about the worry kind of over Act 250 needing to determine if it complies with the town plan and if areas are listed as rural conservation. I'm not entirely sure if it's part of what's published on our town's website right now, but the definition of rural conservation is not land that you are not able to develop on. It's, even at the CCRPC level, it's simply land which needs more delicate sort of considerations. It doesn't say there's going to be any restrictions. It doesn't say this land can't be built on for any period or portion of time or any section of the land. Rural conservation in CCRPC's definitions, it talks about how these parcels will need more careful consideration because they may have natural resources or important habitats or the various different things. There's a lot of different things that were considered into those overlays for the dark green color. And then simply that the mapping of that is sort of, I think, visually to help meet the state's goals for 30 by 30 and 50 by 50. Not these are the lands that are counted and conserved and that's it. End of story. We're done. The story is not over, as I think we've definitely already talked about a lot tonight. That will come with sort of planning work and as Virginia mentioned, lots of public hearings and outreach and input, and Mark said years, hopefully not too many, but we will, it's not a be all end all, I guess, is my point.
Okay, any other comments about this? All right. I do think that this map is a step forward in terms, if we're going to think about our natural resources, knowing where they are. So, you know, it's the land that is mapped by ANR in the Vermont Conservation Design Program. That is land that we need to know where those resources are if we're going to take a step forward in thinking about conserving them. And obviously we need to balance it with the housing question, and that will be the task of the Planning Commission, is to figure out how to do that as best we can. So given that we just don't have much land that's very easy to build on, and building on land that is difficult to build on is expensive. So we'll just have to do the best we can. All right, so, and maybe we can put out more, you know, front porch forum posts. We don't have, you know, we don't get that many response to some of these things that we put out there. So we can put out there that we have a map that you can look at and you can come in and look at it, or you can find it online. And it is going to be, I think Karen mentioned not being able to find it in terms of the plan, but the maps are eventually going to be slotted in to their sections. So the future land use maps will be in the future land use section.
And I would add, as far as the links for the town maps, that has been cleaned up. They are on the town plan steering page and the planning commission page right below the draft plan. So it's pretty easy to get to now.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to reach those. Oh, and one other comment I was going to make about something else that Karen said, or maybe Marcy, about the blobs, the yellow or beige colored blobs. Those actually were placed where there are houses. And one of the complaints that we had in the beginning about this map is that it's really more like a current use map, because the blobs are where the houses already are. So that's why they're blobby looking. And the Regional Planning Commission may not have gotten all of them right. They worked, like off 911 maps and stuff like that to identify the location of those houses and put a tan colored blob around the houses. So that doesn't mean that there aren't other areas on that lot that might be buildable. But maybe it's, maybe there's rare and endangered species there. You would want to know that. Or maybe there's a vernal pool or wetlands or some other natural resource on part of that property.
I'd like to add for the record that the term blob is a planning term. So.
Oh, good. Blob. All right. Good to know. Ian.
I just wanted to thank Marcy for continuing to bring this up, because I think it's important, and I'm learning more by her being persistent. So I hope you keep at it.
Yes, you could join the Planning Commission, Marcy.
Again.
Also, because I know, Virginia, you've mentioned that a couple times, and just from the work I've done since November 4th on this stuff, Right, Preston says, Marsh, you know how I do it? I have 3 computers, so he can have 3 screens up in front of him. I don't have 3 computers. I don't want 3 computers. But navigating from the CCRPC's website, the LURB's website, Richmond's website, the Planning Commission's website, all the different documents, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I mean, I do it because I spend the time to do it, and it takes a ton of time. And, I would much rather be in a meeting with people sitting around a table where we can roll out the map and actually look at it. And then I would know everybody's looking at the same thing and thinking of the same thing. I'm sorry. I'd love to do it. I'd love to offer my expertise to the Planning Commission, but it's just too much for me.
Okay, well, you'd be good at the Planning Commission, and this is why we work slowly, is, in general, because there's a lot to look at, and you have to keep considering all the legislative actions that have been laid upon us. And
right now you're working in a really compressed time frame, and there has not been enough time to digest all of what needs to be digested, I don't think.
Yep.
Hasn't been enough time.
And that was what regional planning said. They didn't have enough time either. They had a compressed timeline.
I'm sure they did.
So
I feel like we missed from March to July. We weren't working on this, or maybe we were, but there didn't seem to be all these issues that I'm seeing. Didn't seem to be on our radar screen at that point.
well, we did talk about it at our workshops, but
Yeah.
with
the final map in front of people.
Right, we didn't have the final map at that point in time. All right, so let's leave it at that point for the moment. Does anyone want to talk about the implementation table and the things that were assigned to the Planning Commission, or would we like to digest and
This town plan isn't going to be approved for years now. We don't have to rush into getting any goals taken care of.
True. Yeah. We don't, unless it's, well, we can talk about that, I guess, in January or March, whatever. So,
March.
all right. Well, I think we've had a good discussion tonight. I think, maybe we just can figure out how we can get this in front of more people, I guess. We have a little while longer that people can look at the map if they wish. Maybe I think we have a couple of big copies, Keith, do we, of this map that people could look at if?
Yeah, that's it. It's on the active planning desk in my office. I could also make copies. I'm not gonna make 40 copies, but we
No.
do a large scale plotter, so.
Yeah, so we could invite people to come in and take a look at the map if they're interested and, understand where the different zones came from, the different designations and.
I'm sorry, Keith, where did you say that map was, the proposed FLU map is?
Well, I have copies in the office, but the link is right below on either the steering committee page or the planning commission page. There's a link to the planning department mapping. And it takes you right to a form that lists all the maps. That's in
Okay,
the
it must be on the, steering committee. Let me see if I can.
It's supposed to be on both the planning commission page and the steering committee page.
Yeah, let me go to
Well,
it.
I'm computer illiterate.
Mark,
Marcy can appreciate that.
Mark, it's on the planning commission page, but it doesn't look like a link because it's embedded into like the paragraph right below where it says see the draft town plan here. You have to hover over the words that say planning department mapping link.
So I'm on the planning commissions above upcoming planning commission members. Somewhere in there.
No, you go to the planning commission page and
Link
you
to the-
see where it says link to the town plan 2026 second draft.
Yes.
Move your cursor down to planning department mapping link. And it should highlight it. You hit that. It takes
Town
you to a
plan
page that has
mapping, please.
all the maps on it.
Can I just add that when you get to that, all the maps on it, for somebody who isn't real familiar with any of this, I think a natural reaction is, I don't know which map to click on.
Yeah.
Well, it says future land use map on it. There are 10 different maps.
I know, it's the FLU map that people need to be looking at, and then maybe in an appendix list all those other maps. But, it's hard. It was
Yeah.
hard. I think because some of you work with this stuff day after day, you know exactly where to find things, but like for Mark and others, and me, it's hard.
I've seen the map plenty of times, but it is hard, and there's no easy way. I don't care where you go. I don't care if you're on any website.
Well,
It's
we
not-
might be able to make it a little
intuitive.
easier. We might be able to make it a little easier. Go
Sure.
talk to Keith and Duncan and figure out how to make it stand out differently.
Well, it
I mean,
seems
when
that
you get there,
it's-
you're right. I mean, I can see exactly what you're saying, Keith. For town
It's-
plan
it-
mapping, please see planning maps, and boom, it brings you to a whole list of
Yeah.
cool-
And those are the ones that will be installed in the town plan. Now, what I
Right.
can do, because the future land use map seems to be the one that is the most controversial, I'll put in a separate link for just that map.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's not a problem. I don't know how I can make it much more clearer than that.
That would be a big improvement.
It's
Karen,
it's not you, Keith.
No, it's fine. I don't take it personally. It's fine.
It is. We just don't think that way. We don't. It's not intuitive. The whole internet, whole Google.
Yep. I know, we're not digital natives. Karen,
If you had paper copies, wouldn't it be possible to hang one on the bulletin board outside between the entrance to the town center and the entrance to the post office with a note?
I don't know if there's enough room for it. There's pretty large maps. But I can look at it now. I think that those cabinets are pretty much full.
Yeah, a lot of it could use updating, even if it were a smaller, a big one would be too overwhelming. But if you did a smaller one, even a typical page size, with a note underneath saying that the planning commission website has a proposed land use or a proposed town plan and mapping, please look at it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep,
I mean, I'll
it
consider it.
does help if you are looking at the map to understand what it is that you're looking at, you know what I mean? To have that page 41 to 48 information in front of you so that you don't just look at the map and go, oh, it's a map, there's a lot of green on it, you know what I mean?
That's why I think just a small map, but a couple lines underneath telling people that where to find the
More
plan.
information, yeah.
Yeah, Virginia, I don't know if, I don't know how to do this myself, of course, but, or maybe Keith could, you know, to satisfy Marcy and folks concerned about, people being unaware of this.
Yeah.
I, no offense, Marcy, guys, I don't think it's as big a concern, but you guys do. And so in order to address that, what if we were to like just put out something on Front Porch Forum, educational purposes, and give a link directly to this address, so they could like click from Front Porch Forum. I know you can do that if they're selling stuff on Facebook and whatever. Has to be a way you could embed a link that
Well,
takes everybody right to this map. So if anybody's out there who really has a concern, and then we'll find out how many people really are. Now, granted, they have to be on Front Porch Forum in the first place, but
yeah.
you know, and so that's a
And
narrow
also, I mean,
factor.
Front Porch Forum is a daily, you know, we'd have to put that on daily, day after day after day in order for it to even register with people. Doing it once is not going to do anything. We know that.
Yeah, I know.
And, you know, I do think, just for what it's worth, and it's my opinion, it means not a heck of a lot. We are in a different time than we were 8 years ago. There's a different mindset right now, and I don't know what is up with the engagement of humans these days, but it has definitely changed. To me, there's no doubt about that. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and the engagement in the town, it's not for lack of trying, that's for sure. It's just people are not engaged.
I agree.
I mean, we even offered food, and, you know, only 40 people came out to the charrette. And, you know, it can be disconcerting and frustrating, but, you know, we can only do what we can do. Of course, what I say is anecdotal. Yeah, it's not fact. It's just my observation.
No, it's sound.
All right. All right, one more comment, Marcy, and then I think maybe we'll wrap it up and just, you know.
I want to go back to those November 19th minutes, where I thought you said that one of the action items, I know you did, was post information about the new draft on Front Porch Forum. So I do think I think it's worth a try once, and maybe you get response, maybe you don't. But I also just want to end by saying I feel like I've really derailed your agenda today. I think this has been a productive discussion, and I really appreciate you giving me the time. I know I've taken a lot of your time since November 4th. I do feel really strongly about this, and I've invested a lot of time myself in it. But I really appreciate your hearing me out and having a good discussion about it. So thank you.
Great, yeah, I think
Marcy,
it has
I
been a
would
good
just,
discussion.
if I could just reply to that, I'd like to ask Marcy that, you know, when this sorts out and the town plan is locked down or doesn't for whatever reason, that specific concerns you have about like changing zoning in your area one way or the other, come forward to the commission outside of town plan oriented discussions. And, you know, we can start beating the drum, getting the neighbors going, finding out your concerns and addressing them specifically.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Very good, thank
Just
you.
beat me in. I'll second.
Seconded, seconded by Mark, right?
Yep.
All right, does anyone object to this motion? The other thing that we forgot to do, which I was not on top of, is to approve the minutes. We talked about the minutes and then we didn't approve the minutes. We talked about the Otter minutes. So
No,
if we could just hold off for 1 minute on the adjournment and approve the minutes of 10:15 and 11:19. Does anyone have anything they want to add? Any changes they want to make to those minutes? I'd hate for them to go another whole meeting before we approve them.
I will say that I like your minutes better, Virginia.
Oh, do you? Than
I
the
do.
Otter summary?
I think they're a little more detailed and yeah, I do. But
I got a
Yeah,
quick
oh,
question too.
the Otter's a lot simpler.
Yeah,
So did we say that someone is gonna post something about these maps on Front Porch Forum, either from this committee or the steering committee?
yes, or both. I mean, we could have a post this week and a post next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Who's gonna do that?
we'll have 2 posts. Well, I would be happy to
Virginia and I will take care of that.
Okay,
do that and just let people know that this is out there, this material is out there, and you know, it's ready to be engaged with. It is complicated, you know, and I think people aren't really quite ready for that. As Marcy suggests, it's complicated material, and it, you know, between the state and the regional planning commission, our planning commission, there's a lot of different factors. The new land use review board, this is all new. It's all been mandated. So anyway, it's complicated, and I hope if people look at the maps and look at the plan, they, you know, do look at it and study it and not just go whatever. So anyway,
okay.
all right. So let's vote on the minutes. Oh,
I
any changes? How?
No,
None.
Okay, no changes. So these 2 sets of minutes are accepted into the record as written. Thank you for allowing that. Now we can get back to the adjournment. Nobody has any objections. So this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Feel
Thanks.
better, Virginia.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for roughing it out.
Yep. Good night.
Good
All right,
night.
good night, everyone.
We'll see you at our next meeting, which is the 17th.